Tasneem has, I run a small NGO called WikiAfrica that facilitates activities and events across Africa and helps to build the Wikimedia movement and the open movement across Africa in order to train people and encourage people to contribute information from their experiences to Wikipedia, so that Africa is as present as Europe or as North America. So on those global sites. And we do that through things like Wiki Loves Africa, which is one of the largest photographic competitions across Africa. It's currently running. So I'll give you more information about that. And then we also have Wiki Loves Women, which is about making sure that women are represented and given a strong platform in which to be heard on Wikipedia as well. And there are many other education programs as well. And the one that we actually started with, which is Share Your Knowledge, and this is part of an extension of that, which is where cultural institutions such as yourselves can harness the possibilities and the benefits of working with Wikipedia in order to then not only have themselves be seen, but make sure that the content that they have within is also shared and placed within the correct context, at which as defined by you. So that's why I'm here.
Okay, so how I imagine this is that, yeah. So I've got some questions for Isla, and then if you guys have any questions, you can just pop it in the chat, and then I will stop at different points to ask Fauzia if there are any questions, and then we'll take questions like that. Also, there may or may not be a small competition at the end of this, so please keep your eyes and ears peeled for the competition later on. So the first question that I had was, can you explain what WikiAfrica is? I think you have kind of done that now. What I wanted to know, yeah, you can break it down, because a lot of people, they've encountered Wikipedia, but they don't actually know like a lot of the functionalities that are available to you as a user, as a researcher, as a student, etc., etc.
All right, so yeah, so the Wikiverse, which is what I call it, is kind of like this massive machine. So as a user, you probably have all interacted with Wikipedia, which is the best known kind of front-facing place. Yeah, it's like it's at the very core of it's an encyclopedia. It's a place that you go and access knowledge. But how that encyclopedia is built is through a vast network of people, mostly people who have had very formal and tertiary education, so quite a high caliber of contributors who are passionate about certain subjects, and they wanted to share their passion about those subjects with the world. And that's basically the fundamental aspect behind Wikipedia itself, is that it's completely volunteer and community driven. The information that is on there is the information that has been drawn from multiple sources in order to establish a neutral presentation of facts and information and knowledge. And the abiding position is to facilitate the access by all people across the world to all knowledges. So and that at the moment is where we're sitting at that kind of, at the moment, the balance, because of access to technology, because of the global balances of how imbalanced knowledge has been, the established knowledge has been skewed towards Western countries, perceived Western countries. It means that this is also reflected in Wikipedia, that the majority of people who contribute come from the North America and Europe, the majority of information is about those places, and therefore places like Africa, but also across Africa, but also places like, say, the Philippines or it's parts of Asia and South America don't get as good traction and don't have as much information. So there is more information currently about I've got a whole load of statistics, but there's basically more information about Europe itself than there is about the rest of the world. So on Wikipedia, and that's what we're doing to kind of stop that. Because Wikipedia is basically written by volunteers, what we do is to try and leverage, we're an independent organization. We are a South African based NGO. And what we do is we facilitate programs that encourage and train people across Africa to write their side of the story, to write their side of history, to write their side of, so that it's not all based on accounts from, say, the British colonial idea, because that's what exists in the history books. It's also what the other alternative and other perspectives are all included.
So basically what you said,
the whole idea is that there's this massive movement behind the Wikipedia page, which is what we are part of. It's about encouraging people to seize their own agency and contribute their own perspectives.
So this is also open to encouraging people from different linguistic backgrounds, so not just English, if you're Afrikaans, if you Xhosa, whatever. It's so encouraged that you write articles in your mother tongue.
Yeah, so I don't know how people access Wikipedia, but I only have one language, so my major interactions are with English. But there are 320 different other Wikipedias, which are of varying intensity or varying kind of amounts of information that are there. So Afrikaans Wikipedia is actually really, really well supported, but then other linguistic traditions are not. So there is isiZulu, there's isiXhosa, there's all sorts of other from South Africa's main linguistic or main languages are featured, but with varying degrees of coverage. So English has 4 million articles, whereas say there will be like 10,000 maybe in Sotho Wikipedia, or I'm not sure the exact, but I can provide you with the statistics if you a link to the statistics. And that is because there just isn't those communities, the kind of like the critical mass of people who are constantly contributing information to those communities. And the content is about universal issues. So like, what is water? What is electricity? To much more specific kind of things. So it depends very much on what that community wants to have featured. Sorry, I'm not sure if I can be seen. I've tried to see whether the video can turn on or not, but
yeah,
you'll just have to do without looking at me.
Like the radio, we have to use our imagination. No, so for example, like in Simonstown, for example, we do a lot of work on forced removal. So that would be a topic that isn't necessarily there isn't necessarily a lot of information on it, but that's an area that we could, for example, then encourage people to write and share articles about. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so essentially, I think a lot of people when they go, because when you think about Wikipedia, it is huge. The range of different the range of the information that you can find there is massive. So you can find from very simple and very key constructs, such as weather or lava or volcanoes or dinosaurs, to kind of very, very specific things like how microbes are created, or the many different types of USB production, or there's some very specific. So when people go in there, I think it's overwhelming, because there's so much information that can be shared, but there's also very little guidance. And I think the best thing to do is to focus on the things that you're passionate about and the things that you know about. So within taking the South African context, I'm going to see if I can find the issue. So forced removals was under a specific area of South African history, which is covered. But there probably is, because I haven't double checked it yet, but there's probably only quite a vague reference to it, or at least a specific reference to it that doesn't allow for the implications that happened from space to space, and how, like, say, within Simonstown, how that completely fractured society, where those people went, how those communities then recovered, or what those implications were. And so therefore, so it doesn't give, it gives definitely some detail, but it doesn't necessarily give the full impact and the full detail. And I think that's the issue that we've been dealing with working with WikiAfrica, is that the very top veneer of information exists. So there's an article about, which I use very often, which is the article about Robben Island. So there's a lot of, so it exists, the article about Robben Island, but what doesn't exist is about how, so there was more information at one stage on the Robben Island article about the rabbits and the rabbit infestation that happened there than there was about the political prisoners, what their conditions were, why they were placed there, how long, who they were. And so that would, so that became, it doesn't really truly position or give those kind of layered details in order to have that kind of that core understanding. So I'm going to look for South Africa. Perhaps if you, yeah, so I'm going to see if I can find the link to forced removals.
Yeah, we're looking at your folders at the moment.
Okay.
So anyway,
but it gives you an example of what's yes. So you can see. So there's the group. There's an article about the Group Areas Act. There's the Abolition of Racially Based Land Measures Act. So those are specific articles. But the actual coverage. So I'm just going to share this on the chat. The actual coverage is like 2 paragraphs.
Yeah. Are you showing us the actual article, because we're not seeing that?
No, this is not that's not me. So I don't know.
Oh, okay. Let me just take this away from whoever is sharing.
I don't know who that is.
Oh, I thought it was. Yeah, I thought it was you. That's why I was like, okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I for some reason I can't access the video, and I can't access the screen sharing facility ability.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Sorry, it's the MS Teams is sometimes a little bit difficult. So let me just in the chat. I don't know if everybody can see the chat. Maybe you want to just unmute yourself if you have something to say, or if you just have a look at that article. Maybe I'll open it for you, Isla, and share it.
So just to reinforce what I was saying, and a lot of people have, and we can talk about this because it's one of the things I think that we want to say, but a lot of people have some preconceived ideas about Wikipedia, and yeah. I think very much there are many of those areas, but some of the issues that are specifically because people don't see themselves reflected. So people from within Africa don't necessarily see themselves, or they see like they see, as I said, the veneer or the top layer, the kind of like very vague references, but they don't see the detail. and they don't see themselves in that detail. And I think that's a very dangerous position, because, and we are the only ones, we are the only ones who should be writing this content. It shouldn't be written by people from outside of Africa. It should be written by people from within who are experiencing it.
Can I maybe just come in here and say that, and I don't know, maybe somebody else in one of the participants can also comment on this, but when I was at university or school, they were very specific about, you shouldn't use Wikipedia, it's not a good thing, blah, 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 blah. So I don't know what kind of experiences you guys have had with Wikipedia, or when last did you make use of a Wikipedia article, if somebody is brave enough to share maybe Lufti Omar, he looks like he's a very confident guy.
Hi, everyone. Well, I'm Lutfi Omar from the Salt River Heritage Society, and part of our work is to one of our projects is called a People's History Timeline, and the timeline is open to the community, so people would come and they would come and place on Heritage Day their milestones onto the People's History Timeline. So we have this physical timeline, but we've also digitized it now. And I think another aspect to this would be to also add it onto Wikipedia. So I think what's important is also to write history from below, history from ordinary people, because what we learn about is, history of Jan van Riebeeck and, other people. And I think it's important as community activists to celebrate local people, ordinary people that have made a important contribution to our history in South Africa.
Yeah, Wikipedia would be a perfect platform for something like that. Hannah?
Yeah, so it sounds like an amazing project, and thank you for that. I think there are some wonderful heritage programs which are so necessary, and this about and as you said in the chat, the narratives of pre-colonial South Africa is so scarce, and the issues that exist, and they are just challenges. They're things that can be overcome, and there are ways of doing it. Is that one of the problems that we have is that, and I'm sure you do as well, is that the majority of the references, so the majority of the papers and the majority of the resources that are used in order to build articles are mostly either not available, because if they're academic articles, then they're generally hidden behind firewalls, so they're not free to use or access. So that's one issue. Or there just isn't that library or catalogue of knowledge that exists, because that is kind of locally sourced, that isn't a colonial construct or hasn't been influenced by colonial ideas or thoughts or agenda. And so it would be, so therefore one of the problems that we have is when you're building timelines and things like that, it's about also establishing the notability or the validity of being able to have sources that you can cite. And I think it's really important when you're doing that. So rather than positioning this information directly onto Wikipedia and using that as, Wikipedia is not a first port of call. It's kind of like, it's a third space. So it's a place where you use referenced and resourced material and then create a précis of information. So if you have a website that you build your timeline on and build the conversations and have the information there, then you can write specific articles that then use that as a reference, as a resource, in order to cite the information that you've gathered. Yes?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So that you would use the materials that you have as a way of citing, of adding to the information about the Salt River area and the heritage of that.
Mr. Omar, are you sharing the Salt River page, or is that Isla?
No, it's not me. I told you I can't.
It's not me. I don't know who's sharing it. Somebody.
I don't know who's sharing it either. It's something anyway. Well, okay, we just go with the flow. I'm trying to get the control back of the meeting here, but we'll just have a look at Salt River Heritage Society. It's fine.
No, the website is not active yet. We only have a Facebook page that's active, so I don't know who's sharing it.
Yeah, let me just give me 1 second.
So I think these are. I mean, unfortunately, I went a little bit deeper into the thing, but essentially, I think these are kind of the strategies that we can work with together in order to best present projects like that. You know, so in some cases, the information will already be online and up, but there are other ways of making your project into a reference site, which is good for your project as well, in order to then also be able to be a place that can be used to cite or add to information on Wikipedia and other knowledge projects.
Okay. So my next question is, let me just go to the participants and check in with you guys. Are there any questions for Isla at this point in time, or do you have any thoughts that you might want to share? I see Roger from Cape Medical is also here. Hi, Roger. So in terms of, for example, if I just use Cape Medical as an example, Cape Medical has wonderful collections of medical artifacts with very interesting stories and photographs. So how can Wikipedia be used for something like that? What are the possibilities for?
So there are many ways of contributing to Wikipedia, and I think this is kind of something that people don't know about. So, and especially for organizations. So one of the things that we do across Africa is to reduce the burden of contribution in a way. So people, you know, writing an article about somebody or about an event is a big undertaking. It's also terrifying because, especially if you're in a new space, you have to find the right resources. So what we have done, so that's why we created Wiki Loves Africa, is that it's infinitely easier to contribute images than it is to necessarily to write entire articles, very detailed and informative articles. And in a way, by adding the images, you can start the conversation, and you can also identify the gaps that exist or that don't happen. So are not yet on Wikipedia as such. So if you take a collection of digitized images, you can then upload those to the library or the repository, which is called Wikimedia Commons. And you can donate those under the open license, and then with the right information and the right, which is something that I hope to be able to train people in how to do, but with the right way of contributing those, those images can then be used to illustrate articles specific about, like, say it's an implement that was used in a certain time, or it can be used as so it doesn't necessarily just that information doesn't necessarily just happen just for the article that you want. It can be used to illustrate other articles as well. So if it's, say, like a dentist's probe, that can be used to illustrate like a dental article, but it also can be used to illustrate like medical tools through the centuries, or it could be used if it's a specific, you know, there are other kind of uses for the illustration. And actually people are more likely to read, that it's been documented and proved, but people are more likely, people will read an article for longer. They will take longer time to read an article if there's more illustrations. So if there are pictures or illustrations that allow people to visually understand what the context is, then they will read longer in a long article. So it's very important to make sure that all your articles are illustrated, but it's also just as a first step, one of the first steps is uploading pictures so that it starts that conversation and they're available. So with WikiAfrica, which is currently running until the 30th of April, the focus is health and wellness, so which includes medical and health practices and all of those elements. So we would definitely encourage, I'll happily work with the Cape Medical Museum in order to make that happen.
Okay, the next, are there any other questions from anybody? I'm going to put it to the floor. Is this a little bit too much information, or are we still kind of understanding?
I see that Jan has said about how you were told not to use Wikipedia for research, and I want to just clear something up about that, which I think is, so the whole point of Wikipedia articles, I think there's a misunderstanding by students about how Wikipedia articles should be used. So Wikipedia articles are never meant to be like the end of the road. They're meant to be the first stage. So they're meant to be like the map that before you go on the journey down into a subject, they're actually meant to be the map that you consult first. Because what they do is that Wikipedia articles are meant to be to give you an overview of a concept or an idea or a happening or a person. And from the sources that have been cited at the bottom of that you can find at the bottom of the articles, you can then use that as the way to dive deeper into that information. So I think both students and teachers have been remiss in how they talk about Wikipedia, because it's meant to just be an introduction. It's not meant to be the end result. And it definitely shouldn't be plagiarized or copied or pasted or anything like that, which I'm sure people were like, wee, this is for free. But it's just meant to be a way of kind of introducing a topic or a concept, and then finding the considered like additional sources to more deeper information.
Okay, so my next set of questions, I see Mr. Omar has also said they have a community archive of photos, and Wikipedia would also be a platform for them to upload it and to share it with other people, which is a very good idea, as long as you have the people's permission to do so. Otherwise, you might run into some.
There are some restrictions, but it's also best to keep in mind that so if you're running community events that are part of Wikipedia, absolutely do documentation of that. But if you're doing it specifically to illustrate articles about kind of concepts, then make sure that the images that you upload are encyclopedic in nature, so that they clearly display the idea or that you're trying to portray. Yes. Mm-hmm. So there are two different kind of spaces on the Commons thing, is that the ones that are used for encyclopedia or to illustrate articles, and then the other ones which are more community based, about like how the people behind the scenes kind of thing.
Okay, so I have a three-pronged question. Firstly, are there any age limits? What are the costs of being involved? And what if you don't have internet access?
Okay, so there are no age limits. We have some amazing people and children. We run a program called Wiki Challenge African Schools, where we have primary school children contributing to Wikipedia. Sometimes they do little illustrations to do a concept, and in some cases they the teacher helps, they all build an article together, and they create, there's a little sister to Wikipedia called Wikidia, which is Wikidia, and we use that for, it's a simpler version of Wikipedia, so primary school children can understand the concepts, and so that's where the Wiki Challenge content is put onto there, so that other children are teaching other children about their realities and what's happening around them. And we're in 9 countries across Africa, in Francophone Africa, doing that. So literally from the age of 10, literally as long as you can write and read, then you can contribute in some way to Wikipedia. And we also, elsewhere, I think in Russia, there's this amazing program where they use women who are from a certain culture and a certain language group, and they're all in a community, I think an old age community, and they write articles as well about their experiences. And they are really quite old. They're like in their 80s. So there really is no age limit. It's absolutely free. So Wikipedia is built on as one of the core members of the open movement, which is about making sure that there's open access, so people can access it for free, but also making sure that people can contribute it to it for free. And there are people who go in there and abuse the system, and there are a lot of safeguards to stop people from doing that, from writing things that are either not true or have been, or just like lies. And that's why there's a lot of emphasis on the citation system, so that sources can be checked. So people can't just go in and say like the Holocaust didn't happen, or apartheid didn't happen, or whatever. That there are these there's evidence that these things existed, which is obviously the counter of that is a problem when that evidence doesn't exist, such as prior to colonialism, or prior to the Dutch arriving in the Cape. That it's not even prehistory, but it's settlement as such, from the European settlement, then it's very difficult to gather that evidence. So because it's not written as such. So those are the kind of, so in one case it's a very good thing, and in other cases it's a very frustrating situation for groups like yourself who are trying to build that kind of that knowledge and make it and get it seen, take it from oral history into kind of formalized history.
Yeah. I don't know if I hope you don't mind, but I've got that WikiAfrica schools video on YouTube, and I think it might be very useful to show, especially the educators in this group.
Yeah,
if
please do.
Are up for it. Let me just find it quickly. There we go.
For students today, the internet has become a second home. It's where they go to play, to express themselves, and of course to get information. Platforms like Wikipedia have placed vast amounts of knowledge at their fingertips, from the history of the cuckoo clock, to the houses of Hogwarts, to the outer rings of Saturn. But when it comes to Africa, its people, histories, and communities, the available information remains imbalanced and incomplete, if it's even there at all. This reinforces a negative, single-story narrative of Africa, where students don't see their realities reflected, leaving them feeling disempowered, excluded, and their voices neither valued nor valuable. WikiAfrica Schools is a non-profit project that helps students write Wikipedia articles about their local communities and interests. We work with schools to make Wikipedia a part of their curriculum by training teachers and providing this neat little box that, when plugged into power, gives access to Wikifundi, an environment that mimics the experience of editing Wikipedia without the need for a reliable web connection. Students learn invaluable technical skills by researching, writing, and publishing their own articles, and the importance of collaboration, peer review, and critical thinking. And once their finished articles are added to Wikipedia, schools transform from knowledge receivers into producers. Once ignored communities are put on the map, students from the entire continent take the lead in producing globally relevant knowledge, and Africa is rebranded in ways everyone can recognize. Help us inspire a new generation of writers and Wikipedians. Find out more info on our website.
Thanks for that, Tasneem. I think the importance of that is it shows how important it is. It shows the need behind what we do. So that first aspect about why it's important to do these projects, it applies not only to schooling. I mean, we are dedicated to that education space, but it also it applies to GLAMs, so galleries, libraries, archives, and museums like yourselves to do so as well. It shows you the importance and how how wide-ranging and wide-reaching this need is.
Because what I was thinking also, Ayla, is that if I look at my nephews and nieces, I mean, they are extremely tech savvy. They know how to use a phone before they can walk and so on. So for me, this is like a perfect opportunity to have an intergenerational kind of conversation where you have an older generation who actually know grammar with a younger generation who are very tech savvy. And together, I think these two would be, quite a formidable contributors, So I
absolutely agree with you. I think one of the bigger issues we have is psychological, so that one of the main damages that both colonialism and apartheid did is to devalue local identity and culture, and to null the position that history and has in identity and culture. So by devaluing it, it also means that people don't feel that they have a voice. They don't feel that their voice is important, and it is so wrong. Your voice is just as important as somebody living in Paris or in kind of New York. And that is, I think, is so vital to teach at a young age, but it's something that we have to teach here. So when people are approached and say, everyone can contribute to Wikipedia if you wish to, many people are like, but what do I have to say? And that's what we're trying to say, is it's all valuable, so that not only children, but everybody within your members and your community and your networks, what they have to say, and what part of the focus for WikiAfrica schools was to make sure that children were concentrating on their, they weren't concentrating about okay, I'm going to get a job in Joburg, or I have to learn English because I want to be a business major. They were no, concentrating on your community. What is important in your community? How has your community been established? What is the collective identity? Who are you guys? Rather than trying to always be somewhere else. It's about building that kind of strong.
It means actually, and I think has some nice. Just it's it that you are saying.
Yeah. Carry on.
Sorry about that. And I think that idea of I think that one of the things that I think in South Africa, there's that disparity or that disconnection between the youth and the elders as such. I think that's a shame. I think that we don't have, and if we can facilitate that. I mean, when I was a child, one of the things, my dad was a lot older than other parents, And so I was exposed to people who had, you know, who had lived through the First and Second World Wars, and like so it was fascinating. That life was, I mean, it was horrific, but that world was very alive for me because of that, because of just those conversations. And I think if we don't have those conversations about what it was to experience apartheid, how that, then it's going to be lost, you know, and that's how things are repeated if it's not kept alive, if the kind of the knowledge is not passed over and passed down or put on to global platforms as well. So I think that's a brilliant idea to bring those two groups together. Yeah.
Also, I think now with the pandemic and everything like that, this is actually the safest kind of way we can work together safely from wherever, the library, the public library, or the museum, or your house.
Yeah.
So I'm
excited. Even online. Yeah, absolutely. I just want to mention something about Wikifundi. So Wikifundi, because somebody said that they like the idea of it. So Wikifundi is it's an offline version of Wikipedia. It's kind of like a training module, but what it has Wikipedia on it. So it has offline Wikipedia. So what we do is we extract Wikipedia. So you can, even if you don't have access to the internet but have a device, you can still, it creates what's called like a local, a very small local Wi-Fi access. So if you have any device, you can pick it up like you would a Wi-Fi piece. You know, like you can connect like you would to Wi-Fi. And then you can access Wikipedia articles. But what we created specifically was the ability to mimic writing Wikipedia articles. And if you're all within the Wi-Fi zone, or that kind of area where you can pick up the thing. So if you're in a community center, or if you're in an old age home, or if you're in a school, everybody within that 50 meters can pick up that signal, then you can all contribute to the same article. So you can write articles together. You can't do it simultaneously. You can kind of like, oh, well, I've written the kind of like the history, and you can write the geography, and, you know, but it does allow people to work on articles together. So it actually mimics the whole experience of doing Wikipedia. And then what you can do is, once the articles are, and it saves and it's there, so you can come back to it later, or you can do it once a week or once a month. It's all saved on this device. And then once everybody agrees that that article is ready for sharing, then you copy and paste it and put it onto online Wikipedia. So it's also a nice safe space for developing articles, especially within a more, in a learning environment. So whether it's for museums, or whether it's for community centers or libraries or even prisons, it kind of works as a nice space.
Ada, we have a question from Mr. Bengu. Lwazi, if you you can go ahead.
Thank you. I can't hear you. You're muted.
Let me unmute him here. Let's see. Can you unmute? Don't allow to mute. Let's see. Can you hear now?
No.
Try again. Yeah.
No. No.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you?
Yes. We can hear you. Hello.
Hi. Thank you so much, everybody. Yeah, just the technology is a challenge.
Always.
So I'm just thinking in terms of teaching and just making sure that information is disseminated and shared across all spheres, and also particularly for the young ones. I think in terms of the teaching methodologies, it's this is a very good way of really moving on with the times, because if you think about a young one going to, if they are instructed on doing a project, I don't think it is as interesting and as exciting as this would be, because I mean, we all know they are more inclined towards doing things in the technological way, and I mean, they can do the work on their phones, they can do the work anyway, and it's an online kind of thing. So I really think that it's a great step towards achieving that, and also whilst also bridging the gap. I mean, the children need to start looking at us, or the older people, not as the enemy in terms of in academia. We really now need to move towards a space where they can start really sharing their ideas with us, and not look at us as being policing academia. They'll find that later on in life, oh, there are other ways. But in terms of being able to teach them, and in terms of being able to induce them into the academic circles, and then also them valuing their own heritage, hence identity, and therefore many other things associated with that. So I really think it's a good platform, and I think it could be implemented across spectrum. Perhaps a lot of research could be done in order to see, in terms of the curriculum, what more can be done. I understand that the focus is on the history and the perhaps colonization, etc. But I think it's a useful tool that can be applied across the curricula. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. I think you kind of have hit it basically on the head. I mean, the thing is that, yes, of course, Wikipedia benefits from, or the global audience and local audience benefits from the information that's being provided, that they can access. But actually, from an individual and from the student's point of view, they are learning a huge amount of information by doing this. So not only are they building their knowledge about their layering their identity with the history and the culture, but they're also learning vital digital skills. They're learning how to research and correctly cite and information. They're learning how to write an article in an academic way, in a neutral tone, with so there's a whole host of different information that they're doing. They're also learning how to make sure that their concepts are clear, that they build the concepts, that the concepts can be are placed in very clear topics, so that they can be deconstructed and understood easily. There's a range of different information, and also how to collaborate with other people, how to learn how to interview people, how to find, to correctly attribute the information to the right people. It's such a rich space for teaching, because, and what's also great is that it's not just a paper that you hand in that's marked and then thrown away. It actually adds to people's knowledge, and there's the pressure that people are going to read it, like not just your teacher. Yes, so there's it also it's an kind of intrusive way of building pressure, you know, and demanding excellence without it being kind of too overwhelming, you know, or too hectic. So I think that and because of the collaboration, it's a collective kind of thing. So there are so many, that's the whole thing with Wikipedia, is once you open the door, it's just a big space. But I agree with you that there is so many ways that we can be doing things, but I think I would caution that we work with what we currently have, and then we can build on that, you know, because the possibility and the opportunities are huge. It's a great, I think we just have to make sure that we don't burn ourselves out, if you know what I mean, that we start what we know and then we can build from there outwards. Yeah.
So that's exactly because we are running out of time. So that was my next question is, so how can we start this process? And maybe Ayla can talk about our idea for the rest of the year.
Sure. So what we, Tasneem and I have been playing with ideas, and what I'd love to do, and it's something that I've been wanting to do for a while, is to create kind of like a, it's not really a training program, it's more of, it is a training program in that I'll be facilitating different opportunities or providing insight into different ways that people can contribute and build their communities and or introduce their communities and their members to contributing and assisting you with your projects by doing that. So it becomes like a collaborative thing. But also I don't want it just to be like a, here's my training module and you guys can, you know, then ignore it. So I think it's something about like I want it to be fairly interactive, but I also don't want it to be overwhelming or burdensome. So we were thinking like if we can get together, say once a month, and we will discuss a specific concept or an idea. You guys can also, in that time, send me thoughts about what you want to achieve or some things that are confusing to you. And we can start off with the basics, and then we can see, I can talk about different opportunities as well. And then we can build from there. We're hoping that in some ways it will help to make your programs and your kind of the things that you need to get done, that it will help to incorporate the members with that. And if there's some way that you can pull it in both like older parts of the community as well as the youth, we can also build like an after schools program or a schools program or something as well into that. So, but at the moment, I don't want to limit it because there are many opportunities. So if you, at the moment, I don't know what your core like issue is, and I don't want to build one size fits all. I just want to show that there are many ways that we can do it, and the way that it's adapted to you is the best way.
Yeah. So we were hoping that eventually over time we'll be starting a Wikipedia club, a wiki club. So, and it's not a, you know, like you get marked at the end of it, or the goal is that we learn together. I'm also learning in this process. So we'll learn how to set up an account, how to begin editing, etc., etc. We'll take it step by step. And yeah, so if there are people that are interested, please let me know. I'll put my contact details in the chat, and you can contact me like that, and we can build a database of, you know, our group that is interested. Yeah, so
we would get together, say once a month, in order to then so that it would take place over the next year, but it would just be about slowly building the possibilities and defining, you know, a project within your project, basically.
Exactly. So for the Salt River Heritage Project, you have a very specific, you know, idea that you might want to consider putting on Wikipedia and getting people involved. So we could then, in Simon's time, we have our very specific idea of bios and stuff like that. So I think that we could all work together on our specific projects that we have, and I think it will be a really fulfilling and kind of process, because we'd learn from each other as well, learn those histories. So I think it's a very exciting process. Remember I said at the beginning of this, when I welcomed everybody, that there might be a small little competition at the end.
I've got some swag to give away. So.
Yeah, she's Isla's got some merchandise.
I've got some Wiki Loves Africa and Wiki Loves Women masks. I've got some caps which said which say I edit Wikipedia from Africa. I've got some beanies with Wiki Loves Africa on it. And I've got some waterproof cell phone holders, and I've got some lanyards. So let me know what you need.
Yeah.
Who's going to win?
We're not going to give away all those prizes right now, but
who's going to know? One lucky person is going to have all of it.
Yeah, one lucky person is going to have all of these prizes. So I'm going to ask a question, but before I do that, Kulani would like to add something. Can you unmute yourself, Kulani? Let's see, where is he?
Okay, yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, yeah, my name is Kulani, and I was invited to this platform by Tasneem. We have a small initiative that we are trying to build with a couple of guys. Basically, it's a platform where we want to write the stories of Africa for Africans on a wide range of topics, be it politics, social activities, economics, business, and things like that. And so I'm really grateful that I've been afforded this opportunity to learn about Wikipedia. I've been using Wikipedia for quite a long time now. And just like the lady who I think is Isla, who explained how Wikipedia works, I've always used Wikipedia like that because it's not, in some of the articles, they don't have a real in-depth. So they just provide a framework that you can use to then research and learn more about a particular subject. So, so what we are doing on our side, because of limited resources, what we have decided to do is we have decided to focus on a particular subject, which I think is something that we are also going to be willing to contribute on Wikipedia, and that is entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship that focuses on women and youths in particular. There is quite a lot of activities that is happening in that field, and we believe that it's important to have a platform where young people and women in particular can come together and share ideas, tell their stories, where we can also cover them, whatever initiatives that they're doing, so that we can exchange information, exchange knowledge, and share different experiences. So I just thought I can just add in there and say I'm really much excited to be part of what you're doing, guys. And I hope and trust that when time permits, we'll also be able to contribute on your platform. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kulani.
Very exciting.
We will be part of the, yeah.
Carry on.
So just so that everybody knows, we are looking at the last Thursday of every month to have a Wikipedia session. So if you can contact me with your contact details, I've put my email in the chat. It's tasneem.wenzel2@westerncape.gov.za. If you can just drop me an email if you'd like to participate in that, and then I can send you all a reminder. But back to the competition. So I just got a whole lot of merchandise there, and it's always very cool stuff, I must say. So I'm going to ask a question, and the first one with the hand up will be the lucky winner. You might want to have Google open for this. Cheating is allowed. So the question is, how many articles in English are on Wikipedia as of the 15th of April? So I'll repeat that. How many articles are available on Wikipedia in English as of today, the 15th of April, 2021? Oh, we have a hand here, Chanel Joseph. Yes, can you unmute yourself and can you give me the answer?
I Tasneem, I actually think my answer is going to be wrong, but anyway, I'll say 6 million articles.
You are very close. Do you want to get more specific? More specific? 6 million?
And 3.
Well, Chanel, you are actually quite close. It's 6,200,000.
No, don't say it.
Yeah, 282,322. So Chanel, well done. Let's all give her a round of applause.
Woo, thank you.
Also, this is like shameless bribery. If we do end up creating a Wikipedia club, we will also potentially get Wikipedia caps and things like that. So
You definitely will.
So that I'm not even going to hide that fact that I'm trying to bribe you to come and be part of our sessions. Chanel, you still have your hand up. Do you have something to say, or you want to give us an award-winning speech for your Wikipedia?
Sorry,
Chanel?
I don't know why my hand was up. It's down now.
Okay, I think you wanted to hand over and say, thank you very much. The wonderful prize. So we'll make a way to get that to you.
Sorry, I didn't know there was a time for speech. Okay, so I'll say thank you
Go
so
ahead, please,
much.
go ahead.
I'd like to thank the Academy and Wikipedia for this lovely prize. I'm so honored. I can't wait to tell everybody at the Cape Town Museum of Childhood that we won a prize. So
Well
thank
done.
you so much.
Excellent.
So yeah, we like to keep it fun and light-hearted in our session. So 15th, the last Thursday of next month, which will be will be
27th.
27th. The 27th of May is what we are looking at. I'll keep you all informed, and I'll let you know well in advance when we plan to have another session. But what you can do today is go and look at Wikipedia and maybe create your profile on Wikipedia, and then you can take and think about maybe like a specific topic that you'd like to cover, maybe your museum or your school or your institution, something specific that you'd like to learn to do, and then bring those kind of questions with you to the next session. Hello, Lamise. It's a bit baie laat, jong. But yeah, and I'd like to thank Isla and everybody for participating, Fauzi for trying to figure out this this thing called Microsoft Teams. Thank you guys for rolling with the punches and going with the flow, and thank you everybody for participating and for listening. I hope there is something that you can take away from this, and I hope to see you at the next session. Thank you everybody. Yeah, so if you can, I'll leave this playing along, so you can just add your contact details to the chat. I've left mine there. Isla has also put hers there. So yeah, you can get in contact with one of us. Yeah, so I don't know if anybody else has anything to say. I think we can.
I would just like to say something, if that's okay. I want to thank you all for listening to me. I want to thank you all for being enthusiastic about this. I think it's the beginning of something very exciting that we can do together. And just so you know, there is a larger Wikimedia presence in South Africa, so we can build on that as well. So it's not just us here, there's a bigger kind of space. And in the chat, I put a link to Share Your Knowledge, which was the beginning of this process that have started about 10 years ago. So if you want to, there's a whole load of resources that give you an idea of some of the things that might be involved. But I don't want to structure it entirely like that. I want it to be kind of a much more kind of engaged and fluid process and dynamic between us. And also, what we could do in the interim is create like a communications channel. So it could be Telegram or WhatsApp or something. So if you have any questions, then you can drop it into the communications channel, and I can answer you all. So if you have a question, then people can also receive the benefit of that knowledge too. So I don't know if that's something that you would want to do, but it would be good. So, okay.
Okay. So thank you once again, everybody. Yeah, I think that's it, guys.
And I look forward to seeing you next month.
Next
Very
month,
exciting.
27th of May.
Yes, all of you. No pressure.
Okay, see you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.